had a meeting Friday morning to discuss this. A name came up from 10 years ago that fit this MO. We came to the conclusion, in fact, we're working on warrants concerning a Timothy Hill, who in 2004, during the course of about 30 hours, he did 8 armed robberies. And he kept getting progressively worse, each armed robbery. And including the last one, I believe he beat and put a woman in a closet. I remember the robbery was somewhere around Ryan Street. We ended up getting in a foot chase with this guy. And I remember it distinctly. We knew he was hiding under a house. Literally the last house we came to, he could have been in. The K-9 sniffed him out, and he eventually came out from under this house. Now we've got 10 police officers with weapons drawn, a K-9, and he comes out from underneath the porch holding 2 chunks of concrete. Now that gives you an idea of the mentality of this subject. And he was smoking crack cocaine. Now, he was convicted 10 years ago. Judge Carter's court received a 10, 11-year sentence for 8 armed robberies, and he was paroled October this year. So he just got out. His parole ends next year, 2015. So, for 8 armed robberies, he did 10 years in prison. The system failed 10 years ago. We shouldn't have to be dealing with him. We've got 5 separate victims who had to go through the trauma they went through. Imagine being held up at gunpoint, then getting in the back seat behind you with a gun, not knowing if you're going to be shot when you get that money out of that ATM. That's 5 victims we've had traumatized because the system failed. So, Friday morning, or this past Friday, approximately 12:38 p.m., this is Officer Chris Bodan. Chris Bodan is an 8-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps, and he toured Afghanistan. And he's been with the Lake Charles Police Department about 2 years. This is the kind of officers we want. Officer Bodan is in the ATM at Chase Bank, the same Chase Bank on Broad Street, 2nd Avenue, when a vehicle heard screeching of tires and a vehicle almost rams him, which of course got his attention. The vehicle then turns and goes back on 2nd Avenue, and then as the vehicle's still moving, a subject jumps out of the vehicle with a gun in his hand and starts running north towards Sunlight Manor. Officer Bodan then gets pursued in his car. He can only go so far because there's a fence, and gets out and gives a foot pursuit. While this subject is running with a gun in his hand, he's by himself pursuing this subject on foot, doing what we do. Doing what we do every day. Officer Bodan was able to apprehend him inside the Sunlight Manor, and there was women and children all over the place. He was apprehended. He had the victim's ID in his pocket, in addition to the cash that he just stole from the victim, which is our 4th robbery, 5th victim. As a result, we still do not have a warrant on this subject, Timothy Hill. And if we pop that photo, Gordon, this is him. As you can see, pretty distinctive eyeglasses. So, we have obtained warrants on the other 3 robberies. The Walgreens, the church, and of course, the last one where he was apprehended. So far, he is charged with 3 counts of armed robbery, 3 counts of armed robbery of the firearm, aggravated kidnapping, 2 counts, and he has a $2.3 million bond, Judge Ritchie, I believe, that's correct. And in addition to that, there is a parole hold on him, so he's not going anywhere. See this officer here? He put himself in harm's way, ran down a suspect by himself, an armed robber, with a gun, and he makes $14.87 an hour. $14.87 an hour. That's what the city pays him. That's a travesty. That's a shame. They ask me all the time, where do you get such officers? What are you doing to recruit officers? I think we're doing a pretty good job, but we're doing a lousy job of retaining these officers. I just lost 2 officers at the state police. They handpick them. I just lost an officer to the parish to run the juvenile detention center. Handpicked. Well, I'm tired of it. Damn tired of it. And I thank you, Chris, for what you did. And buddy, all I can do is give you a commendation coin. This is something I did. to officers who go above and beyond the call of duty, and he certainly did that day. I asked him, and he certainly would have been justified in shooting the suspect, and his answer was very quick. Now, this is an 8-year veteran of the Marine Corps for Afghanistan. Chief, I was worried about missing him and maybe hitting a woman or a child in that project. That's the kind of officers we want. Now, you know, hopefully this is the last. He's been arrested starting when he was 20 years ago, when he was 18. And you can tell, getting progressively worse, progressively worse, progressively worse. Why he was given a second chance? The more of a second chance. And I'm going to let Mr. DeRozier explain to you what he can be charged with, what these sentences are, but he does not deserve another chance at society. He doesn't deserve it. And if he had not caught him between Friday and now, who knows how many more victims there would have been? Who knows? Now, as it turns out, the weapon he had see that? That's not a real gun. It had an orange tip on it. He stole that. Took the orange tip off. Now, I'd have shot him. I'd have shot him. And I wonder what would have happened if we would have shot him and it turns out the gun wasn't real. I wonder what the outcry would have been. And I don't know. Quite frankly, I don't care. But that's what we have to deal with. All right. I'm going to let Mr. DeRozier say a few words, and then this is kind of a first. I will, if you'd like to ask Mr. Bodan some questions, I'm going to allow that, as long as you understand this is a pending investigation, and there's some things he can say or can't say, but he's certainly allowed to give you his perspective of what happened.
You know, the history that Chief Dixon referred to was that this defendant was convicted in 2004 of 7 armed robberies and sentenced to 10 years by Judge Carter. He also was charged and convicted, I think, and pled guilty about 1999, about 5 years before that, to attempted second-degree murder and got a sentence of only 3.5 years. That's been the problem with our judicial system. Unfortunately, there are criminals that we have to deal with every day, especially the ladies and gentlemen in this room that are in the law enforcement community have to deal with every day, who do not want anything better, always will lead a life of crime and do everything they can to take advantage of others and do harm to other people. These are the kind of criminals that we're going after. The sentence for these crimes that you saw listed on this board a few minutes ago, it all amounts to life imprisonment. That's where he needs to be. And this district attorney's office is going to make sure that's exactly where he ends up, so that he cannot hurt, scare, or injure anyone else ever. So that's where we're headed with this. Any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Thank you.
All right, Chris, if you come on up here. In addition, Chris's dad, I've known since I've been here. He's the head of the Federal Probation and Parole Office at the Federal Courthouse here. If you have any questions of Chris, feel free to. He's not running for office or anything, so.
Well, will you just, in your own words, kind of walk us through that day?
All right. I stopped at Chase to deposit some money. As I was going to pull out, I heard a vehicle. The vehicle's tires screeching. I observed the vehicle was traveling at a high rate of speed towards me, and turned, pretty much putting his nose at the nose of my vehicle. As it was turning, I saw a black male with a pistol jump out the back seat and roll on the ground. As soon as I was able to, and the vehicle moved, I gave pursuit in my vehicle. As I closed on the suspect, he went through a fence, which forced me to get on foot and chase him. Still holding the pistol in his hand, ignoring my commands to stop. So I gave chase into the apartment complex that he ran into. Like Chief said, my main concern was keeping the innocent people out of it. I didn't want to start a gunfight in the middle of a living complex, especially with the innocent there. So I began prying corners and searching for him just in case he was going to jump out and shoot me. And I located him probably about 10 feet from where I was at. Told him to put his hands in there, asked him where the pistol was. He said he tucked it in his waistband. He complied with the rest of my commands and placed me with the rest.
Did you realize, or at what point did you realize that it was an air gun?
I didn't realize it was an air gun until we had him in cuffs and he actually grabbed it from his waist.
When you saw what happened in the parking lot, did you immediately put two and two together that this could be related to the other ones? Just
Yes, my exact words, when I let dispatch know what was going on, is there's a black male with a pistol running north across Broad Street. Could be the suspect to all these robberies. Our supervisors had informed us earlier that shift what was going on.
Well, hell of a job, buddy. Detective Thompson was the lead detective on this, and was actually in the process of doing some six-packs on him. I mean, we knew who it was. We knew who it was. So it was a matter of time. We were getting warrants. And just it went down the way it went down. And thank goodness nobody got hurt, because he was going to get progressively worse. There's no doubt in my mind. He did it 10 years ago. So, great job. I know your dad's proud. If you have any questions of me or Mr. Roger,
all three times, did he get behind him, or the person in the car?
the 3 times in the car, yes. The other one was at the church, them trying to enter. I see Elijah Gilrea's here from the mayor's office. Thank you, Elijah. Yeah, the only time he did not use a car was in the when they were going to enter the church.
We have, quite a bit of details on the first 2 car robberies in the church. Can you tell us a little bit about the last one
Yeah.
in which you're
He came out of a little doctor's office somewhere around Price Street, and the subject again came up from behind, got behind him, ordered him to go to the ATM. I think he was actually transferring money from savings to checking so he could go to the ATM machine. And so I think it was the second trip back there, if I'm not mistaken, is when he saw Officer Bodan, and then he gunned his car and almost hit him head on, which obviously caught his attention. And then the subject obviously knew something was up, and then as he squealed out, he jumped out of the car, and then of course he started running with a gun. But we were literally in the midst of putting together some warrants to go get signed as this happened.
So the man who was kidnapped gunned the car toward the officer to get his attention?
He was the driver,
Okay.
and he deliberately
Right.
almost rammed the officer, which was a brave act, extremely brave act, and then squealed out on 2nd Avenue, and as he was moving, the subject realized that he was in trouble. He'd rather, thought his chances were better getting out on foot, and he ran straight to the project, straight due north, and then went through a opening in the fence, which forced him to stop his car and then give foot checks.
One thing I didn't understand, you said there were 2 trips to the ATM that day?
I think, it's my understanding he went there originally and had to go get some money and transfer from saving to checking so he could draw ATM.
Okay.
It's my understanding. But the subject had the victim's ID in his pocket when he was captured, in addition to the money he got from him.
Now, you said y'all just recognized this crime out of an MO. I mean, did y'all have anything to tie him to it? Or
We were discussing it at detectives that morning. We had a 9 a.m. meeting Friday morning, and we all thought he was in jail. We got a phone call, I believe, who said that this person with the thick glasses matches the description who just got out of jail. And as soon as we heard the name, I immediately remembered him from 10 years ago. Sure enough, he got out of jail in October, and then it just started coming together. We started putting together a 6-pack to show the victims, and we're in the process of getting a warrant on him when this last incident happened. So we were going to get a warrant on him regardless, and it went down the way it did.
Any advice to victims as far as, if someone comes to you and tries to put you in a car, should you get in the car? Or?
I would always tell people to cooperate. Unless it's at some point you think that you really are gonna get shot, then you need to do what you gotta do. I commend this victim for doing what he did, and I'm glad that he wasn't hurt. And I'm glad it was a fake gun, and I'm glad it went down the way it did. But like any business, you know, or cooperate. Yeah. But I would say, and I think you covered an article the other day, hey, be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of your surroundings. Be cautious. Get off that cell phone. When you're leaving your car to go somewhere or going from somewhere to your car, pay attention to what's around you. If it don't look right, don't do it.